To start with, for those who may not be familiar with them already, I'd like to quickly go over what an access audit is. Access audits, which are sometimes also known as Disabled Access Audits or Disability Discrimination Act audits, which is a little weird because the DDA hasn't been around for 10 years, but the terminology has stuck, um, are assessments of places and services that determine whether they meet the current best practice standards of accessibility for disabled people. They also serve to help you understand your obligations under the New Equalities Act and any relevant local legislation. As well as that, they help raise your awareness of accessibility and other disability rights issues. KCIL offers two kinds of access audit, depending on whether you're still within the design stages of a project or wish to assess an existing aspect of your organization. Our planning and development option lets us work with you in the initial design stages of a development to raise your awareness of your design obligations, as well as to assess any initial planning applications you make and ensure the development meets the accessibility standards required as you make your eventual building regulations application. And then we also have our site and services audits, where we'll work with you to identify pre-existing access issues through site visits and service assessments, making your organization a more inclusive place for both staff and clients going forward. And next, I'd like to go into why each type is important and the benefits they can provide. The importance of assessments at the planning and development stage comes down to a simple point: earlier is better. The earlier accessibility is considered within the scope of any given development, the more effective the results, as it's far easier to address access issues in the design stage than it is to make adjustments to a completed development, to make changes before things are quite literally set in stone. To understand the best points at which to have an access assessment, we need to first take a look at the development process itself. The Royal Institute of British Architects publishes a standard framework that details the various stages of the process that is to be used in any new development, and I'll just put that on the screen now. The framework is broken down into 8 stages, labeled from stage 0 to stage 7, though we're most concerned with stages 2 through 4, which are concept design to technical design. At the end of stage 4, the building regulations application is made, at which point the design must fully comply with the appropriate regulations, including those for accessibility. As such, it's usually at this stage where we've been called in, acting as the final safeguard before that submission to check everything is as it should be. However, as we expand these services, we also want to encourage developers to consider making use of our services earlier in the process as well. By stage 4, the initial design applications have already been made, and so if there are significant concerns, the application could incur additional planning conditions or even require complete revisions and need to be submitted again, which costs time and money to the client and developer. Even when only minor revisions are required, these can lead to inconvenient placement of the required facilities, as space for them was never properly allocated earlier in the design. Instead, when we've been involved earlier in the process at stage 2, concept design, we've seen much better results and higher rates of developer and client satisfaction. The RIBA framework itself also recommends starting what they call your route to building regulations compliance, which includes accessibility, at this stage of the process. Including it here allows you to integrate the requirements seamlessly into the concept at the start, making allowances in the initial brief and ideas for any of the additional features that may be required. And what that means is that by having done so in the earlier stages, designs remain true to their initial vision as they proceed. But of course, what if you aren't making something from scratch? What if you're an established organization that already has a site that serves you well? Or a new startup that's buying an existing office space and is inheriting any access issues that may already exist? Well, even though earlier is better, it's also never too late to improve your accessibility. And that's when you would need to take advantage of our sites and services audits. And one of the biggest reasons you may need these audits actually comes down to history. Kingston, like the majority of the country, has a wealth of older buildings. It's part of our local identity, something we're proud of, but having a historic town centre does come with hurdles. On the screen now is an aerial map created using data from the most recent census. It has been color-coded to show the average age of buildings within the borough. The majority of the map is shaded in grey and blue, aside from a small red section near the centre of town. The grey and blue indicate that the vast majority of local buildings were built before the 20th century, or at best only within the first few decades of it, which is long before the disability rights movements and before any legislation that governed accessibility in public and private spaces. Even the red area I mentioned, which is a more modern zone containing buildings built from 2010 to 2015, predates several of the more recent revisions and updates to the building regulations. Therefore, there is a high chance that no matter where you are in the Royal Borough of Kingston, there could be access issues currently unaddressed in your premises. In these cases, we will work with you over a series of site visits to assess and identify any accessibility concerns that may be present so that they can be properly addressed and dealt with, regardless of the age of the building. A common misconception is that little can actually be done in older buildings, especially ones that are protected, but that's not true. There are a great many heritage sites and listed buildings in central and greater London that have been raised to a higher standard of accessibility with only minor adjustments and without compromising their design legacy. The other most common misconception is that accessibility only refers to the physical and built environment, but this is not the case also. Our access audits also cover aspects of your organization where accessibility is a key but often overlooked factor, such as internal and external communications, for example, your website, any social media presence you have, messages and newsletters you send out, and even your marketing strategies, as well as internal procedures, such as your hiring and management processes, and whether or not you have a system in place already for staff to safely come forward with their own accessibility needs and other concerns that may help them improve their work. And thirdly, I'd like to talk about the final service I mentioned, our new live reporting service. This is a brand new function of our website where members of the public can send us reports of any access issue they encounter as soon as it happens, letting us know what the issue was and where it happened so we can get a fuller picture of accessibility in the local area. We can then use our connections to make sure these issues are brought to the right people, whether that's local authorities or business owners. That said, what I want to emphasize today is that this is just as much about highlighting the positive as it is the negative, if not more so. By encouraging our users to be just as vocal about reporting examples of good access within the borough, highlighting the excellent progress that is being made, and giving well-deserved attention to those places or organizations that are leading the way as what we like to call local champions of access, we hope that through their example, we can encourage others to do the same as they see the methods used and the benefits that come from it. Those of you who have been friends or members of KCIL for a while may remember that we used to give out awards to organizations that were examples of excellent accessibility. And as this service expands, we hope to see that return. Of course, that's not to say there won't be negative issues discovered, but even in these cases, we want to encourage change rather than criticism. Through this service, organizations will become more aware of any existing access issues and can decide how to deal with them moving forward. And naturally, our own access services will be at their disposal, as well as the many awareness-raising workshops we hold throughout the year to assist them with tackling these issues. And whether the organization was already a good example of accessibility or one that had an issue but successfully addressed it, we want to be able to promote them through our platform in the disabled community, through our service users and members, as well as our partner organizations and other disability advocates with their own followings, so that we can spread the word about places and services the disabled community can feel safe and welcome using. And on that note, let's talk a little about why it's so good to be recognized for improving your accessibility and how accessibility can benefit you. For starters, a more inclusive society benefits everyone, giving everyone the opportunity to engage with life to the fullest, including with any services you provide. Those of you who have been to some of our previous events know that I could speak for hours and have done so about the benefits of an inclusive society, not just for marginalized groups, but for everyone. There's also legal responsibilities when it comes to accessibility. Disability is a protected characteristic, with legislation at the national, regional, and local levels that require a certain level of accessibility depending on the nature of your business or service. However, unlike other statutory laws, the Equalities Act isn't actively enforced or regulated. Instead, the public is left to deal with these matters through civil action, which can be a nasty surprise for any organization. Undertaking regular evaluations or access audits can help protect you from later repercussions from access issues you may not have even been aware you had, or who simply inherited through your choice of venue. There are also massive financial benefits to maintaining a high standard of accessibility. Purple, the organization behind the Purple Pound, has done considerable research on the spending power of the disabled community and estimates it could be worth £249 billion to UK businesses. An organization could therefore make significant gains if they're able to capture their business, especially if they're able to get in early and make themselves a name within the community in the first few waves. I highly recommend visiting Purple's website to learn more and to see the exact figures for your own business sector. Now that I've hopefully shown you why these services are important and how they can be a great benefit to your organizations, let's explore the benefits that come from choosing KCIL in particular as your partner in your access journey. First, of course, is our experience. As I mentioned at the start of this session, though we are expanding and improving these services, we're not new to this. In the last 18 months, we've assessed more than 50 planning applications and performed close to 100 on-site access audits in the last 2 years. Our access staff have completed training with the Centre for Accessible Environments, with some on the path to full accreditation with the National Register of Access Consultants. But it's not just our professional experience that we bring to the table. Our staff have lived experience with a wide variety of impairments and disabilities. This means that accessibility is more than just academic to us. It's something we've dealt with and had to keep in mind for most of our lives. And that experience is something we bring to identifying these issues, as well as knowledge of how effective various solutions can be. Another huge perk to choosing KCIL is our connections. We've worked hard to build our relationships with decision makers, academics, and researchers, such as through our Access Committee. And because of this, we're aware not only of the current accessibility requirements, but what changes may be coming in the future as well. As an example, I just recently participated in a study discussing whether the building regulations need to contain more provisions for age-related concerns such as dementia, as the population is living longer and longer. As well as participating in these researches, we're also one of the voices pushing for change, using our links to decision makers as well as other campaigning organizations and individuals. What this means for you is that we are in a position not only to help you meet current accessibility standards, but to share what we know of any potentially upcoming requirements as well. And our connections can also benefit you in other ways. If you're trying to improve accessibility or address an access concern that pertains to a specific part of the disabled community, we can use our contacts to get the relevant experience from those who specialize in or have the lived experience relevant to your issue. And another way that choosing KCIL benefits you is through our other services we have available. I mentioned before, we have a powerful belief in awareness raising and training. And as part of that, we already offer awareness raising events and workshops, both in-house and in partnership with others. What this means is that we're able to be by your side through the whole process, not just identifying issues, but teaching you how to address them and even identify them yourselves going forward, working together with you at every step. And finally, we're developing a new corporate membership scheme, which will provide a variety of additional benefits. If you choose to become a corporate member of KCIL in the future, then your membership will include an access audit of an aspect of your organization. Membership will also include potential discounts on further or more comprehensive audits depending on the scale of the assessments needed. Full details of this scheme will be found on our website very soon. And speaking of our website, more information about all our access services can of course be found at kcil.org.uk using the Access Services tab on our banner. This is also where you can find and submit your local access examples through the live reporting service. Thank you all for listening. I hope I've been able to convey how excited we are about these new services, how important they are, and what they can mean for you all.